Hi, thanks for joining me on another Bible talk. Now, this talk it's called Joel Osteen, Ups and Downs Prepare You to Serve God. And I've just been listening to one of his messages. Now, I don't know if it's available yet as its own YouTube video, but it's the kind of ending message of the Sunday church service from 2 days ago. That'll be the 14th of July, Sunday 14th of July. I was listening to the Lakewood church service. Like, obviously starts off as just as the live stream, but then afterwards, when the live stream closes, it's just a video to watch. And the actual title of his message is, it's actually God Wastes Nothing. But something just occurred to me. A couple of things he preached that I hadn't really thought of, which are encouragements. But one thing as well is that came out, that people kind of associate wrongly, maybe associate Joel Osteen with, well, if you just like say the right things and you smile, you listen to his messages, life, it's just, everything's just kind of candy floss. It's just God's blessings just for me. You know what I mean? And there's not really much in the way of kind of sacrifice or anything, because it's just God blessing me. That's what Joel Osteen seems to be wrongly associated with. Now, the messages that I heard, I've just been listening to it a couple of times. It's very different from that. And hopefully when you hear about it, you'll be encouraged and you'll just sort of see things in a different light, if need be, if that was your kind of perception of Joel Osteen. Now, the scripture verse, he actually used these verses in his talk. So I'd like to kind of use this as a Bible verse for, well, he's for his talk, and it says, I'd like to use it as a Bible verse just for the talk I'm going to give now, that I trust it will just encourage you. And it says, by faith, it's Hebrews chapter 11, verses 24 to 25. It says, by faith Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. So Joel Osteen, he's commending Moses in a sense of not just wanting to go have all the world's pleasures, but he saw something deeper in serving God. And he's used Moses in his talk. He's used Moses as an example of somebody in his life. He's had ups and downs. Obviously, maybe he was born in adverse circumstances, wasn't, when Pharaoh wanted to kill all the newly born babies, and he had to be hidden in the river, and then he went from there to the palace. But then after that, he had to then flee into the desert, and then God told him he had to go back to the palace again. And then after he led his people out of Egypt, he was back in the desert again. And Joel, I hadn't really thought of this, but Joel, he was just saying that because Moses had been brought up in the palace, it kind of gave him that familiarity when he had to go back to confront Pharaoh to say, let my people go. But also Moses, when he'd fled in the wilderness, he had to learn and get acclimatized to the wilderness when he fled from Egypt. So when he eventually led the children of Israel out of Egypt into the wilderness, he had that kind of already that familiarity. And Joel Osteen, he was just kind of making the point that these different ups and downs, these different experiences, that God doesn't waste them. He uses them just to prepare you to serve others. And see, because some people might think, well, Joel Osteen's messages is just about God blessing me, you know what I mean? And there's no sort of sacrifice. But Joel Osteen, he's illustrating the correct balance here. That Moses, yes, if you're a Christian, if you're following God, you will have ups and downs. So yeah, acknowledges that. As with Moses, he had all these different experiences. And that from these verses, he was pulling away from the worldly pleasures of all the riches that he had in the palace, because he sensed the calling to go and serve his fellow man, the Hebrews. He had that calling upon God. So it's not this idea that, well, when you become a Christian, it's just God's blessings for me and it stops there. Joel Osteen was commending Moses for, in a sense, pulling away from the worldly pleasures, and that God used his ups and downs to actually serve others. So with Moses, it wasn't just a case of God's blessings. God used the situation, and he had this calling on his life to go and serve, to lead the people out of Egypt. And obviously that's what Joel Osteen, that's what he was sort of bringing. He had a couple of other stories in his talk about sort of ups and downs and how God kind of just used them just to bring blessings. But the example here is with Moses, that Joel Osteen, he does acknowledge, yes, if you want to be a man and woman of God, if you're a Christian, you will have ups and downs. Maybe contrary to this perception that, you smile and you say the right things, you're always going to just know good things and nothing else. No, he acknowledges you will have ups and downs. And then he also brings out that these ups and downs, it's not just for you. Yeah, God can still bless you out of them. But you have a calling to go and bless other people of God, to go and serve God, just as Moses did, to confront Pharaoh, bring the children out of Egypt. And Moses, he might have made these mistakes. He might have looked back and with regrets about why did because when he sort of killed that Egyptian overseer, he had to fled to the desert. So he might have thought, well, why did I make that mistake? I've got to now spend these 40 years in the desert when I could have done all these other things. So he might have had these regrets. That was probably one of his mistakes, because I don't think God called him to deliver children of Israel out of Egypt that particular way. He did sense a calling, but he initially went about it the wrong way. So he made those mistakes, but God still used all of that. He didn't cause the mistake, he didn't condone it, but God, he could use all the different ups and downs, all the mistakes. So that's when Joel Osteen was titling his message like God wastes nothing. So even if you've made mistakes, you've had ups and downs, God, he didn't cause all of them, but because he knows about them, it doesn't thwart his plan. I think Joel used the scripture that God's calling in that it's like irrevocable. So God knew about all your ups and downs, all your mistakes before he'd call you to serve other people, just be that blessing. But God, he can even use the circumstances just to train you and just to prepare you for that service. So yeah, I trust this message has been a blessing to you. If it's blessed you, maybe you'd like to maybe leave a like, maybe share with some of your friends just to encourage them. So thanks for joining me in this Bible talk, and God bless you.